I've been playing Super Mario Galaxy for as long as I can remember. This is a game that has stood the test of time like no other game has. I remember beating this game for the very first time all those years ago, fighting Bowser and saving the entire universe. Also being strangely confused by that ending, but still, Mario's adventures in the boundless voids of space with Rosalina and the Lumas is one of, and still to this day, one of Nintendo's best products. Which is why it kinda hurts to make this video. Earlier this year, I had made a video documenting my time with Super Mario 64 and how I had managed to beat it for the very first time in my 20 years of existence. Finishing Super Mario 64 really opened my eyes to something bigger, something that I had never really experienced in a platforming game before. A feeling which, at least in my opinion, Nintendo has never been able to recapture in any of their platformers since. Not in Sunshine, not in Galaxy, not in any Mario titles to release thereafter. The freedom of choice is what made Mario 64 the game that it is. From the very moment you collect your first star in Bob-omb Battlefield, you're instantly able to whisk yourself off to a brand new level with 7 more stars to collect. And when you get your 3rd star, even more of the castle opens up to you, allowing for so much freedom and choice in how you're able to tackle each objective. The closest we ever got as a return to this gameplay style was Super Mario Odyssey, where granted, you're able to collect the moons in any order you find them, however, it still doesn't grant the amount of freedom you have in how you progress through the game, since the way you travel each kingdom is very linear. This was a huge realization to me since I was the kid who grew up on linear Mario games. I mean, ever since I had beaten 64, I had really wanted to go back to what is my favorite Mario game just for another go-around. I mean, it's been a while since I've done a full run of the game, and I wanted to know what had changed in my mindset ever since beating 64 for the first time, because let me tell you, a lot had changed. This is what this video is for. I'm simply documenting my last experience with Mario Galaxy and how my mindset has affected my enjoyment of the game. I also chose to 100% the game similar to how I did with Super Mario 64. And I do have a lot to say on all of this, so I'm not going to waste any more of your time. My name is Dylonic, and these are my thoughts on Super Mario Galaxy. The creativity of Super Mario Galaxy is simply boundless, as the vast, dark reaches of space is something we as a society have never explored before, or at least to this large of an extent. You know, so traveling the cosmos should be a surefire hit and presents ideas that are only limited by one's creativity. There's a lot of room for experimentation, fun things scattered throughout the place, and arguably the best part of it all is that there are no rules to it. In previous Mario games, we're usually set in a singular location, that being the Mushroom Kingdom. 64 is a bit debatable on where we go because of this whole painting thing, but regardless, Galaxy is a complete departure from other Mario games in terms of its setting. This is especially true in comparison to the previous 3D Mario game, Sunshine. For those who don't know, Sunshine takes place in a singular location, that being the Delfino Isles. Every location of the game is somewhere new on the island, with the central hub being Delfino Plaza. To create this sense of immersion and cohesion in the game, they made sure every location in the game feels like it belongs there. Going as far as to be able to see other level locations in the game by looking out in the distance, and I mean, why wouldn't you? These levels all take place on the same island, so it makes sense to do so. Galaxy is the complete opposite of what Sunshine did. Sure, in certain levels you're able to see planets that you have yet to visit far off in the distance, but it isn't like being able to see a completely different galaxy next to your own. All of these levels have their own little thing going on, and each house their own gimmicks. They don't adhere to the same set of rules that any other games follow. The focus is somewhere completely different and quite literally out of this world. You'll be hopping around in a kingdom full of bees one minute, and the next you're learning how to surf on this intergalactic wave. It's things like these that tell me Nintendo never really cared about cohesion because they just probably realized they could do anything they wanted to and get away with it. The only relative cohesion this game has is the hub world being the common observatory. This is the hub area for the game and your little playground to run around in as you advance further and further in the game. Although something related to the setting I think Nintendo absolutely nailed and is still my favorite thing about the game: the atmosphere. Plain and simple, this game has sauce to it. To be fair, you don't really need a lot of cohesion with your level themes when your main theme is running around in space. This game has an unparalleled atmosphere compared to any Mario game to date. This game's atmosphere is so good, not even the sequel could capture it as well. This is the biggest reason I always find myself coming back to Galaxy. The look and feel of these worlds are absolutely phenomenal, and I just love them so much. The soundtrack is what truly carries the atmosphere for me, and there's a clear reason as to why so many people remember it to this day. Sure, it's a Mario game, you're gonna have your fun and bouncy tracks, but when the orchestra kicks in, ooh, that's where this game really shines. This game chose to go with a primarily cinematic and orchestrated soundtrack, which is a very deliberate choice from the Mario Galaxy team. Space is vast and it's lonely, but at the same time, space is grand, very bold. Using a variety of orchestrated instruments gave the team ample room to create just about any kind of feeling they want with their sound. Mario Galaxy is definitely the most emotional Mario game with the most emotional soundtrack. So many feelings and emotions are captured so well here, and no other track captures every emotion as well as the credits theme. This is one of my favorite gaming tracks of all time. I mean, to be fair, Nintendo never really misses with their main songs, but it's with these main themes where the ideas for the game really shines. It represents the best of what they have to offer in a single song, and it just leaves the player in awe and wonder as they finish the game. In a game like Super Mario Odyssey, the main theme represents this feeling of a grand adventure, a globe-trotting quest for the ages. The music heavily reflects the feeling of adventure. Galaxy is a completely different case, however. This feels like it was ripped straight from a Zelda game, honestly. The song starts with this loud, bombastic sweep of the main motif as it moves into a march-like suite before it goes into this quiet, somber piece. Then it blares back up into the main motif once more, and then quiet down to and then it quiets down again into this reflective, emotional, and beautiful track before reminding you that this is a Mario game and you shouldn't feel sadness while playing Mario.
Super Luigi Galaxy!
There are more tracks that perfectly capture the atmosphere of this game too, but I just think the credits theme does a perfect job at painting you a picture of what you'll find in this game. Although other songs like Space Junk Road, Battle Rock Galaxy, and what is arguably the most iconic modern Mario song of all time, Gusty Garden Galaxy. Gusty Garden is definitely one of those songs that bring out the biggest emotional reaction out of me when listening to it. There's a reason they brought it back for the Mario movie, just saying. But atmosphere does not make the game. What is it really that makes this game shine, if you will? Sure, the game can sit there and look pretty all at once, but how is the gameplay itself? Well, I have more to say than I actually thought. Like how 98.5% of my viewers aren't invited to my birthday party because they weren't subscribed to the channel. Subscribe, I brought cake. Mario Galaxy is a weird game. Not only are we in space, but we get to play around with gravity mechanics as well. That's pretty much the highest selling point, being that you can play this game upside down. And to that I say, checkmate, asshole. Seriously though, I meant it when I said there were no rules bound to Nintendo when making this game, because they went everywhere. A lot of this game takes place on smaller spheres, planets, moons, whatever the hell you want to call them, and on paper, this sounds really, really scary. Mario seems like an absolute nightmare to control and balance on these spheres, especially when the gravity is changing constantly on certain levels. To combat this, the developers gave Mario a very special move, the spin. This is like a severely nerfed FLUDD from Super Mario Sunshine. In this game, the spin can be used for many different things. So, to demonstrate, I'll be using my friend David to show you the wonders of the spin in Mario Galaxy. While spinning, you may use it as a means of course correction. With gravity being all crazy sometimes, you'll need to catch your fall or make precise jumps. You can also use the spin to kill people. That's about it. Anyway, thanks Daniel, back to hell you go. But yeah, the spin is a huge help here in Galaxy, and without it, I think the platforming would suffer greatly, similar to how FLUDD acts in Sunshine. The only difference is that developers aren't dicks this time around, and they don't steal your one good way of traversal. Mario isn't as weightless in this game as he is in Sunshine, but he still isn't where he should be for me, so the spin helps out a ton. I wouldn't say it's the controls themselves that are at fault for a lot of my mistakes, but there are quite a few times when specifically with the gravity where I got very tripped up, whether it be gravity shifting quickly or the controls changing depending on where I'm standing. It's very clear that the gravity isn't the best as it could be, and I'm not expecting it to be perfect or anything, but when you have an entire level that's upside down, I want to know how to control Mario properly without fidgeting the controller trying to figure it out myself. The controls are fine at the end of the day, although it's definitely weird returning to them after playing Mario 64 for so damn long, because I remember complaining about Mario 64 not controlling as well as I wanted it to. I always wanted 64 to control like Odyssey or Galaxy, but after fully completing 64 and going back to Galaxy, things definitely aren't the same. It's very ironic because I was hardly critical of Galaxy beforehand, but now it feels like I'm ripping it to shreds. And since we're on the vague topic of 100% completion, I feel like that's where our attention should go towards, because this is where things took a huge nosedive for me in terms of how I enjoyed the game. Going in to replay this game, I was very excited to get started. Just another cozy, comfortable romp through one of my favorite games of all time. Everything was going fine, the entirety of the terrace was lovely, and so was the fountain, trotting through some of my favorite levels in the game, you know, but it was when I got to around the halfway point was when I realized something, and it kind of shot down the majority of my excitement through the rest of my playthrough. The back half of this game kinda sucks. Like really, really bad. I was genuinely surprised at how much of the back half of the game was blatantly reused from the first half, to the point where I was genuinely shocked. Some points are less obvious, while some are completely shameless. I always liked Gold Leaf Galaxy as a kid, but I always knew that this reused a lot of Honey Hive from the Terrace. Little did I know that it was quite literally Honey Hive, but flipped and slapped with an autumn color scheme. Or how about beating the exact same boss 3 separate times in 3 separate levels? I don't know this guy's name, but I absolutely hate him. It wouldn't be as egregious if his boss fights were spread out further in the game, but they're all located in the engine room and garden, which are right next to each other. And I mean, yeah, his boss fight is kind of fun. They try to make it unique each time you fight him, but at the end of the day, all you have to do is climb to the top of his head and ground pound 3 separate times. One of my least favorite examples of this being Dreadnought Galaxy, reusing the auto-scrolling section from Battle Rock, making it slightly more difficult. Like, I get they needed to cut corners somewhere, but out of all the levels, Battle Rock was probably the worst. This is obviously a personal bias of mine because I hate auto-scrolling levels in any kind of platformer, so having multiple instances of one pisses me off greatly. Although I will admit, some of the stars do a pretty good job at masking the reused aspects, and in my opinion are done really well. I am of course speaking of the one-off gimmick levels sprinkled throughout the game, and those tend to be my favorite levels. Nintendo obviously knew how good these base levels were and started to sprinkle in sequel levels throughout the game and expanded upon the level gimmicks. I did feel like having one-off levels like these left a lot of room to improve or add upon things to make them better, so having sequels to these levels is a really good way to reuse content in a fun and interesting way. I love playing through Matter Splatter in the Ghostly Galaxy level, but I felt like there was so much more that could have been done with the idea, so I was pleasantly surprised when there was an entire dedicated level to it outside of the first go-around. In the beginning, they leave you wanting more, and by the time you do play the sequel, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and you're left satisfied with the content of the level. And me saying all of this isn't to say that the second half is all bad either. I mean, I quite literally just complimented the game again 2 seconds ago, but even then, there are original ideas still put into the game that hold some of my favorite levels, specifically Toy Time Galaxy with the huge Mecha Bowser mission. The climax of this level revolves around you climbing up this large toy Bowser, crawling up his arm like a bug as you dismantle this whole thing and grab the star. I love that. It's one of my favorite levels in the game, but I feel like levels like those are fewer and farther between as they were in the early game. And it only got worse when I unlocked the purple coin missions. Can I say it? I'm just gonna come out and say it. Fuck the purple coin missions. When I had beaten the game, I had managed to grab about 90 stars and proceeded to get the last 30 with the purple coin missions. My God, these missions killed all enjoyment I had while completing this game. For those who don't know, the purple coin missions are unlocked after you beat the game for the first time. Now, these comet stars are dotted around certain levels where you're required to collect 100 of them to get the star. The prankster comets are also blatant reuse of levels which frustrate me, but they're alright, I guess. The purple coins, however, you know, collecting 100 coins in a Mario 64 level isn't so bad, knowing that there are more than 100 coins per level. They were some of the hardest stars to grab in the game, of course, but they rewarded you for knowing the layout of the level with a star. Mario Galaxy, however, completely throws that out of the window and says, you know what? Fuck you. The worst of these levels come in the form of Beach Bowl Galaxy and the like. There are exactly 100 coins scattered throughout the level, and you better find them all. Oh, and make sure not to die, because if you do, you have to restart the whole damn thing. These missions wouldn't be so terrible if they weren't so time-consuming. And credit where it's due, some aren't as time-consuming. Some are actually fun to complete. Space Junk Galaxy, Ghostly Galaxy, all of these fun timed sections where you're supposed to grab 100 coins and the star before time runs out. These, in my opinion, are actually fun and challenging. They don't take up too much time either. Sea Slide Galaxy's coin mission took me 13 minutes to complete. Why? Those who know me know I hate beach and desert levels, so when I get a mission I know I'm not gonna like and a level I don't like, it hurts me a lot. It's a huge pain in the ass to go through, and oh god, the terrible swimming controls really don't help its case. Most of the time these missions feel simply pointless, primarily in the linear levels like Dusty Dune Galaxy. The level just requires you to basically replay the mission again, and there's no huge change to the gameplay either. You just retrace your steps back until you attain 100 coins. This is not fun. It felt like a complete chore to walk through, since it quite literally was a walkthrough. At least with a replay like Space Junk, the path you walk on is changed from the last time, which makes it more challenging. And the cherry on top of this shit cake is the way you access these prankster stars, which is every other level you complete for it's really stupid and forced. I'll admit that doing this was fine for a good while, as I had a bunch of other stars I needed to get, so forcing me to complete those missions in the meantime was fine, and honestly a good break from the purple coin action. That is, until I ran out of stars to complete. It's not the worst thing in the world, I guess, but it sucks having to leave the room I'm in, walk all the way to the terrace to complete Luigi on the roof to get access to another star. Why Luigi on the roof? Because I wanted to see him. He's really cool. Luigi's what kept me sane through all of this, and God knows I wasn't going back to Sea Slide Galaxy. Getting to experience all of this filler and garbage right at the end of my playthrough really soured my experience by the time I was done with Galaxy. By the time I got the final star, I didn't really feel anything. All that was on my mind was getting off the damn game to go do literally anything else. Could this have been prevented by not binge playing the game? Yeah, probably, but I have to get videos out every 2 weeks, so it's not like I could have taken too much time. This is where the video ties back into itself where we started, the freedom of choice. This is when I knew I had to let go of Super Mario Galaxy. Nintendo really wanted to focus on making a linear experience with this game, and that shows in not just how you progress in the world, but just by the level design too. Some levels like Honey Hive Galaxy and, Autumn Honey Hive Galaxy, I guess, have relatively open level design, sprawling every which way, inviting you to explore, but that's just not how the levels are designed at the end of the day. In Super Mario 64, you have the option of tackling just about any star you want in any order from any level. Now, of course, this isn't always the case. Some missions are locked behind completing other missions, but the vast majority of stars you can get at any time. Galaxy does not do this. It's plain and simple. Now, to be fair, Galaxy isn't Super Mario 64. It doesn't need to be, it never needed to be. I don't want to give off that impression to anyone. Galaxy is still a phenomenal game at the end of the day, but it's just not something I can easily go back to anymore, unlike a game like 64. These levels are designed with one end goal in mind, with a singular star in mind. All of these planets are very small and you hop around from planet to planet, but it hurts the game in my eyes when you have to complete these stars in a set order. Now granted, this is not the case all the time, exactly like 64, but in reverse. There are some times where you can complete certain objectives or find hidden stars out of order, but it's not enough to really scratch that itch for me. Now, of course, just because I don't really like the linearity of the game doesn't mean it's poorly designed. It's quite the opposite. My favorite levels in Mario 64 were linear obstacle courses, and there were quite a few here that were done tremendously well. The original fight with that one mole guy in Gold Leaf Galaxy had a really fun course behind it, and it was when this boss was still relatively fresh, so I think it was done pretty well. Going back to Heavy Metal Mecha Bowser, whatever the level's called, that mission was just climbing up Toy Bowser, but it ended up being one of my favorite missions in the game. The biggest issue lies when the majority of the level previous is the same as the next one, with the ending bit being slightly different. Most of the secret stars are like that in the game. The levels are fun to go through once, but making me go through them twice or even 3 times just isn't that fun to me. It gets tedious and boring. The original prankster comments kind of fall into this issue. These filler stars would be better at the end of the day if they were more difficult, because I like the Cosmic Mario races. Those are pretty fun and warrant another run of a level, but they're just so damn easy. Speedy. Speedy comments have you beat a level in a certain amount of time, which again, would be cool if the time limits weren't so damn lenient. This comment is only in 4 levels, and 2 of them I absolutely despise, so that doesn't really help its case either. Fastfo comments are practically non-existent, only taking up 2 total stars, and they're fine, I guess. The only comment that's actually fun to go through, in my opinion, is the Daredevil comment. You're spawned in with only 1 point of health, so you have to make it through without being touched, or you have to start the level all over again. Pretty much getting sneezed on will kill you. It's a great challenge, and the majority of the levels present are previous boss fights, which offer an even greater challenge. The boss fights in this game are already really damn good, so going back in for a no-hit round is really fun. At the end of the day, most of these stars aren't good enough to warrant another jaunt through the exact same linear levels. The Daredevil comments are still fun, but those revolve around mostly fighting bosses, so those are excluded. It's just the linearity of the game wouldn't even be as big of an issue if the back half of the game kept up the same pacing and originality of the first half. Unfortunately, it's due to this half of the game falling off so hard, it makes the linearity look like a much bigger issue than it really is. Because if I weren't completing the game 100%, I think I would have had a much better time finishing the game. But to me, you haven't really finished a Mario game until you complete it 100%. Unless it's like 3D World when you have to beat it 5 times for true 100% completion, that doesn't count. I also have to rank all of the stars in the next video, so subscribe if you want to see that, I guess. It does feel weird kind of saying this, but I guess I'm just not as much of a fan as I once was of Super Mario Galaxy. But that doesn't take away that I still really love this game. Oh, I love it to death. Sure, other games may have risen up in its wake and taken the top spot as my favorite Mario games of all time, but that takes away nothing from how awesome this game truly is. If you truly love something, you're more than willing to overlook the bad things about it. I can still criticize my favorite things while still loving them. I forgot to put in my weekly dose of Xenoblade in this video, but man, I just love Xenoblade 2. I hate the sexualized characters though. But I still love this game for the sum of its parts. Will people get mad at me for saying that? You think they wouldn't, but they already have. But that will never take away from how much I love this game. Same thing for Mario Galaxy. Sure, I don't see the game as this untouchable masterpiece anymore, but I still see it as an amazing game with some of the best Mario action you'll ever see. I was almost going to end this video on a somber note until I realized that would kind of suck and wanted to say that letting go is okay. Sure, there are parts of the game I really don't like, but the good of the game more than makes up for it tenfold, and it just makes me love the game even more. But otherwise, that's going to do it from me today. If you liked what you saw, make sure to smash the like and subscribe button. We finished the road to 1,000 subscribers, and now we're headed bigger. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers. I know we can do it. I'd love to see you all there. But ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dylonic, and I will see you all in the next video. Take it easy and stay fresh.